how's it going, everybody? And welcome to Ask Me Anything About Politics. My name is Jared Berenstein, and I am here to answer all of your questions about politics, regardless of how simple or complicated they might be. I know the politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can feel like trying to learn a new language. So, where can you go to try to learn about this stuff? Where can you go to try to get an accurate idea of what's going on in the world or in the country or in our government? Well, this is the show where you can ask all of those questions and there's no roasting, there's no judgments, there's no debating. What's up, JP? Great to see you again over on Twitch. So, yeah, any questions about politics, just throw them in the chat and we will get to answering them. Everybody is welcome, whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, something on the outskirts, something in between. There's no such thing as a dumb question. It can be as simple or as complicated as you like, and we will get to answering it. What's up, D. Scott? Great to see you again. Yeah, there's no roasting here. There's no debating. There's no fighting. This is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. D. Scott says, how are you staying positive? I mean, that's definitely part of the work, D. Scott. Part of the work is taking a step back every now and again and doing the things that are important for you to feel like a regular person again. Yeah, I'm not going to say it's not a struggle, but it is definitely part of the work is, a little bit of self-care, a little bit of watching movies, playing video games, having a nice time with the missus. All right, excellent first question today, Steve Scott. Everybody else, welcome to the show. Welcome to Ask Me Anything About Politics. Throw your questions in the chat. Everybody is welcome here. Daniel Winterbottom says, what do you think of the War Powers Resolution Act of 1973 when in regards to Venezuela? So I want to be 100% honest here, Daniel, in that I'm definitely not an expert in that specific, act, in the War Powers Resolution Act of 1973. I think the short version is that sometimes presidents have violated that. And that this is an example of a president violating that. John Abbott, great to see you again over on YouTube. Sam Ollie says, happy January 6th today. Yeah, this is the anniversary of when Donald Trump led an insurrection against the United States, and he failed because him and his buddies are incompetent. In addition to being corrupt, in addition to trying to steal an election, they are also really bad at their jobs. Okay, monkey emojis. Hear no evil, see no evil emoji says, could Trump realistically occupy Greenland? So, yes, it is true that we probably have the stronger military between us and Denmark, so they wouldn't necessarily be able to stop us. If all of the other NATO nations come to the defense of Denmark in protecting Greenland from American annexation, that's a little bit more of a sticky situation. I think the more likely scenario is that what happens with Venezuela happens, where we just kind of like go in without any kind of without any kind of congressional approval or approval of other nations. Yeah, it's not legal. It might be possible in the might makes right version of the world that Trump is trying to go back to. Okay, Nicholas McClure says, is it possible to take over Mexico? I mean, I'm sure it's possible. I don't know if it's wise. The very best news says, probably. Don't know what you're referring to. Ed Rubeck says, I see you keep pushing things that have been proven false. Can you give me an example, Ed? The very best news says, you are probably delusional. Well, that's not really a question, the very best news, so I think I'm just going to probably just go ahead and get rid of you real quick. Sam Ollie says, Maduro didn't fail. I don't know what that means, Sam. Queen Kitten says, who'd you vote for in 2016? I voted for Bernie in the primary, and I voted for Clinton in the general. Nicholas McClure says, why wouldn't that be wise? Well, Mexico, I believe, has a pretty strong army. So it's possible that we would be able to defeat them, but annexing other countries is bad for global instability, and it's also very tenuous where there will be, there'll be a revolution of the citizenry against American occupation, and so we're gonna be seeing like Vichy France type shit and terrorist attacks on American bases, both in Mexico and in the continental United States. So yeah, bad idea all around. Nikki Lauda says, "Good morning, Venezuela." That's pretty funny. Nate Ashby says, "Since Rothschild private banks don't control it and resources, would Venezuela happen under Democrats too?" No, the Venezuela kidnapping of a head of a sovereign nation would not have happened under Democrats. And the whole Rothschild's private banks thing, it's kind of leaning into conspiracy theory territory, so maybe we can take our foot off the gas there. Real Benda says, "I've read quite a bit about how the Maduro arrest will have an impact on Cuba." Yeah, it probably will. I do not believe that it's going to be, a net positive in the long run by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, Dino Qua says Mexico has a strong army. Spitballs and spears. Laughing emoji. I mean, I don't know. I'm not an expert in Mexico's military, but I don't think that we should be taking over our, other sovereign nations. It's just bad for a lot of reasons. Okay, David says he literally had a warrant for his arrest issued by Biden. Okay, well, that does not mean that we get to go kidnap him. If he came to America, we could then arrest him. But Biden issuing a warrant for his arrest does not merit military actions. Dan says we shouldn't. It's all for the oil. That is accurate. We basically Donald Trump just stole money from American taxpayers to pay for a military operation to steal oil and resources from a sovereign nation so that oil billionaires can become even richer. So your money just was spent to make oil billionaires richer. Our money was just stolen so that billionaires can be richer. That should upset everybody. That should really piss off everybody. Let's see here. Nate Ashby says conspiracy theory was term originated by the CIA. All questions are valid. I don't know if conspiracy theory was a term that originated from the CIA, Nate, and I don't know that all questions are valid. I'm just asking questions is something that, propagandists will use as an excuse to muddy the waters. Ari says, we are looking very bad. Yeah, no arguments there. Susan Moon says, what is keeping the Venezuelan army quiet? I think there's a couple of things going on right now. We don't 100% know what is going on behind the scenes in Venezuela because the vice president of the Maduro regime is now in charge of Venezuela. Then it's not as discordant of a change as we might have seen in should it have been just like a somebody that America installed in there instead. And so I'm imagining that the same loyalties to Maduro that the military had transfer now over to his vice presidents. But again, it's been 4 days or something. We have no idea what's going on down there. Let's see here. Donna says, shouldn't some kind of international body censure us or something? I believe the UN is doing that. I could be wrong though. I think that's happening. I don't know if it's neglect. I believe it's just that it hasn't happened yet or is in the process of happening. Ought to be me says, my first visit, just type a question in the chat. Yeah, type a question in the chat. Abgatha says, how does Trump continue to always be right? Trump is rarely right. He is just a liar. Abgatha, so any other questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. AB says, thoughts on Moroccan politics? I don't know enough about it to actually speak on that. BMO Fanboy says, hi, hello, I also am a fan of BMO. John Abbott says, the term conspiracy theory predates the existence of the CIA by over 100 years. So what you said earlier was inaccurate, Nate. TikTok Henry says, it appears that Trump has a game plan to start a civil war. Was that recently reported on TikTok? Because I haven't seen anything about that. Or is that just you shooting from the hip? Let me know. Z17 says, did Clinton get a BJ from Trump? I have no idea, but it is hilarious to think about. G says, was Maduro actually a dictator? Most of us media says so, but when you look at Venezuela reporting, he's not. Yeah, I think it's probably, I think we can generally assume that that is accurate, that he is a dictator, that he stole an election, that he He's stealing resources from his own citizens. Yeah, bad guy all around, I think. TikTok Henry says, "Open your eyes." Gotcha. So that is not something that was reported on. That was just your theory. Okay. Oh my God, you're so real. I am so real. Thank you, BMO. Okay. Fletch lives again says, "What is Trump's endgame for saying he's going to take over several other countries?" I think that's what he wants. I think he wants to be the guy who took over Canada and Panama and Mexico and Venezuela and Greenland, and then he gets to rename the country Trumpland, and then he gets to die knowing that he accomplished something. It's stupid. Okay, TikTok Henry says he's acting like Putin. He is. Lacy Panda says, "How can Maduro be tried in a U.S. court when he isn't even from the U.S.?" I believe that is the only part of what's going on with Maduro that actually has a sound legal basis. Like we regularly throw people in jail in this country who are not citizens, who are not from here. Yeah, the Supreme Court cases that have been ruled on where things like this are concerned is that it doesn't matter how that person got to America. They're here now. They have been indicted, and so they will stand trial. Narco says, "I will ask again, how do overtake Chancellor Palpatine?" I mean, the rebels seem like they're doing a pretty good job. They blew up the first Death Star, so maybe we can just support them. Real Benda says, "Trumpland, founded in 2026. Let's hope not." Dino Qua says, "He was elected using Dominion voting machines and Smartmatic software. Sound familiar?" I'm not really sure what you're getting at there, Dino. Are you saying that Trump stole the election? Are you saying that Maduro stole the election using those voting machines? Because that sounds a little conspiracy theory-ish to me. BMO Fanboy says, "What do you think about the invasion?" It's a stupid, reckless, dangerous thing that the Trump administration has done. It is really concerning that the military actually did that thing that Trump told them to do. It is against international law. It's against American law. It is not going to have any good consequences. It's going to be just like Iraq and Afghanistan. It's just another forever war that we got started. The question is not will it be bad. The question is how bad is it going to be. And it was a theft of American taxpayer dollars just so that billionaires can get richer. Aren't you guys fucking tired of billionaire wealth being subsidized by American taxpayers? Like, isn't that fucking pissing you off? Because it really fucking pisses me off. And the fact that our tax dollars were just spent so that we could steal oil from Venezuela so that oil billionaires can get richer, that pisses me the fuck off. All right. Abtha says, "How did Trump lock the border so quickly?" By being, you know what, Abtha? I'm just going to get rid of you. I'm kind of tired. I get annoyed easily. Sorry, guys. Okay, Max says, "Chinese got him to do it, so they have precedent to do what they want." That's a little bit of a stretch. Let's see here. Let's see. Pyro 2K says, "You do realize Russia and China were stealing it. We are actually going to pay for it." I don't realize that, Pyro. I don't know if that's accurate. Okay, let's see here. BMO Fanboy says, "Okay, but surely the U.S. will save the third world country they just invaded this time." Yeah, for real, BMO Fanboy. Dino Qua says, "Trump wants voter IDs, paper ballots, and same-day voting for legitimate elections." That is inaccurate. Trump wants voter IDs so that they can suppress the vote of people that normally vote for Democrats. He is hostile to same-day voting as well. A MAGA acolyte just purchased the majority of the voting machines. So I doubt that he's going to be pushing for paper ballots because he is in a position to benefit from the guy who owns the voting machine company rigging elections in the future. Pyro says, "This is actually true. I didn't believe it until I did research. None of the money went to the people." Again, not really sure if that's accurate. You're not a reliable source. You are a nameless, faceless person on the internet. Okay, Dino Qua says, "That's untrue." No, it's not. Awesome Sauce says, "Unserious question. What do you think will happen first? Trump dies or Trump gets impeached?" I have no idea, Awesome Sauce, but thank you for bringing some levity. Delano says, "Can I have your latest hope rating 1 through 10, please?" I'm going to put it at a 6 right now. Freddie says, "What's wrong with voter ID if it stops illegitimate votes?" It doesn't stop illegitimate votes, Freddie. There is no significant voter fraud that happens in America. They did like a 10-year study, and they found something like 5 cases of voter fraud in those 10 years. So it's not a thing. And the Republican Party's admitted it. Like, there's footage of them saying we do voter ID to win elections and for no other reason. Pyro says he was a horrible president. None of his people wanted him in that country. That is not true. He has a 50% approval rating. Secrets, his opinion on the two-party system, it's not great, but I don't think it's as responsible for a lot of the things that people say it's responsible for. Real Benda says Donnie held a presser that he called Trump about the Maduro incident. Not really his place, but okay. Yeah, I think it's important to make sure that the president knows that you don't like when he's doing things that are illegal. Dino Qua says, source for that lie. If you DM me, I will email it to you, but I do not have it memorized. Bert says, what do you think of Tim Walz's decision to drop out of the race? I'm not 100% sure what the behind the scenes is going on there. What it looks like is that Tim Walz is not trying to sacrifice a Democrat winning that governorship just so that he can fight this onslaught of misinformation that is coming out about the COVID fraud case that is coming out of Minnesota right now. That's the short version. Dino Qua says, which Republican when? Again, DM me because I do not have that memorized. Dylan says, mundane only call because they're holding Maduro in Brooklyn. Oh, that's interesting. And I was just reported for bullying. Misinformation. I was just reported for misinformation, everybody. And I haven't said anything's misinformation. I would love for someone to tell me what the misinformation was that I did so that I cannot do it again in the future. TikTok no longer allows me to fight these or appeal them, so I'm going to have to stop and restart my stream on TikTok. Please come back, everybody that's watching on TikTok. We will be right back. Twitch and YouTube, we are still live, but come back, everybody, on TikTok. Come back. Alrighty, let's see here. Okay, John Abbott says, even the negative connotation of conspiracy theory predates the CIA by a few decades. Excellent information, John Abbott. Welcome, everybody, to Ask Me Anything About Politics. My name is Jared, and we are here to answer all of your questions about politics, regardless of how simple or complicated they might be. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, something on the outskirts, something in between. Everybody is welcome. So just go ahead and ask your questions, and we will get to answering them. I know that politics is really confusing to pay attention to, especially with all the misinformation right now. So this is the place where you can ask all of your questions, and you're not going to get ridiculed or, roasted or anything like that. Average Joe, great to see you again, says it's free speech for me, not for thee. That is accurate. I'm not really sure what you're specifically referring to, but I think I know where you're going with that. Freddie says, do you reckon the approval rating 50% because so many have left the dictatorship? Maybe, Freddie. I don't know. Raw Backshots with the thumb in. Great to see you again. Do you think Rubio adds Venezuela and Cuba to his resume he will take to beat J.D. Vance in 2028? Potentially. Yeah, I can see those dots connecting where he views taking down Venezuela and Cuba as being a guarantee of winning Florida in the general. So yeah, I don't know if that's his main motivation, but that's definitely that tracks for me. Arya Meta says, what's your take on abortion? I am pro-choice, but even if you're pro-life, you should still vote for Democrats because Democratic policies actually decrease the number of abortions that happen in America. Republican policies, they don't eliminate abortion. They don't even decrease abortion. They just make pregnancy more dangerous for women. Bert says, what do you think of Mamdani's rent freeze policy? Didn't Cuomo already do that in 2018? I don't believe that he did do that. And honestly, Bert's, I have not dug into that enough to speak on it openly. The short version is that I like that Mamdani is doing things to try to make New York City more affordable. Everybody is suffering under the affordability crisis right now, and I don't care if the policy is perfect on day one. I just think we should be trying things. Shawnee Bear says, thoughts on big corporations buying out RAM for AI and in turn skyrocketing prices in RAM. It is one example of many in which big corporations are fucking us all over for their own profit motive. They've bought up all the RAM so that they can make a ton of money doing AI and crypto and shit like that. And now we're all going to have to suffer because we won't be able to afford buying computers and shit anymore. What's up, Mia? Great to see you again. Bert says, or how about Nixon's attempt in 1970? I unfortunately don't know anything about that, Bert. I know that Nixon tried to do like some price control shit in the 1970s that people associate with inflation during that time, with rising rates of inflation during that time. But that's not my area of expertise, unfortunately. Apple user 74 says, dream non-politician as president. Ooh, that's a really good question. Dolly Parton. John D says, so if someone reports bullying on you, you get kicked off? No, but they restrict my my visibility in the algorithm, and so it hurts my ability to talk to people on my live stream. Thank you, Mon. I appreciate you. Z17 says, what happened to your live? I got reported for misinformation, which I was not doing, but TikTok does not really have any way of policing that anymore. Like, I can't appeal that decision, so it just makes more sense to stop and then restart. Let's see here. Secret says, best 28 possible candidates. I ain't focused on 28, Secret. I'm focused on 26. Somebody who looks like the symbol that Prince changed his name to says, are you left or right? I am a progressive Democrat. Average Joe says, I'm referring to you getting reported for bullying and misinformation, while people like Asmongold can baste his way through harassing Minnesota Somalis. Yeah, accurate, Average Joe. That makes total sense. Okay, Sam Bam Digital says, we're ready for Iraq 2.0. I mean, we're watching it happen. I don't know if I'm ready for it. Okay, Z17 says, third time's a charm election, Trump versus Obama 28. Yeah, that I would pay to watch Obama destroy Trump in that election. Mr. Zedunga says, was the 2020 election rigged? No, it was not. Sophia, great to see you again, says, why do you think the type of socialism common in Scandinavian worlds would work in the United States? Excellent question, Sophia. So I did see the message that you sent me. I wasn't able to read the entire thing, but I will get to that. I guess the short version is I don't buy all of the reasons why people say that it wouldn't work here in America. Like, we're a much bigger country with a much larger population. That to me means that it will be easier for it to work here in America. The more people that you spread the cost of something over, the cheaper it ends up being for everybody. It's the reason why if you are living in an apartment by yourself, it is more expensive to get cable and pay the electric bill than if you have two people living in that apartment or three people living in that apartment. So yeah, the cost of it will go down because of the size of the country. As far as like the bureaucracy, obviously that's going to be really difficult and complicated, but in the service of having better healthcare that is less expensive, where people are not starving to death because they can't afford their surgeries and shit like that, I think we should take on that challenge of, fixing a difficult bureaucracy. Alrighty. 312 says, did you hear Stephen Miller say the U.S. has a right to invade any country? Yeah, that dude's a psychopath, so he's going to say a bunch of crazy shit. Arson1234 says, what do you feel about Nat Rothschild treating good job DJT? I don't know who Nat Rothschild is, but anybody who is applauding what Trump did is either full of shit or has been misinformed. Righty. Sophia says, but more people equals more diversity of opinion and disagreements, so the speed of services would slow down. I don't know how diversity of opinion would slow down the speed of services, Sophia. Again, that just kind of sounds like a bureaucratic hurdle that we can solve if we just put our mind to it. Martin McClear says, why does being a communist not get as much hate as being a Nazi when communism has killed more people? I don't know that communism has more people, and I think that communism gets plenty of hate, at least in America. I don't think Nazis get enough hate, in my opinion. Real Bendis says, I saw a video that Gavin Newsom has received over 20 Trump 2028 hats, not happening, but made me laugh. Oh, like people are sending them to him? I guess that's pretty funny, but it is just a way that Trump is grifting more money out of people. Nobody should be buying Trump merch. It is just putting money into billionaires' pockets. Z17 says, are politicians controlled by the oligarchy and intelligence agencies? I have not seen any substantive reporting to suggest that intelligence agencies are putting pressure on politicians to do X, Y, or Z. It might be happening. I have no idea. And as far as being controlled by the oligarchy, the answer is like yes and no. Some politicians allow the fact that billionaires can give them unlimited campaign contributions to affect their policy making decisions, but some don't. Some politicians are actively trying to change that system, and some aren't. On average, the Republican Party is making it easier for billionaires to buy elections and buy the government, and the Democrats are trying to make it harder. Okay, Highborn says, I've been in your lab before. All right, well, great to see you again. Free Speech says, why can't anyone see Trump's doing this to establish the Northwest Passage? I guess some of us are seeing that. I don't know what you mean by that, though. Okay, Rogue Dragon says, humans have allowed their beliefs to be used to oppress with colonialism. I think that's generally pretty accurate. Elaney, I missed you too. Misty Lane. Wow, different name. Oh, because you're on Twitch now. That makes sense. Okay, Average Joe says, are there any shady or underhanded tactics used by right-wingers that you think may be useful to spread positive messaging instead? Or are we cooked since the Epstein class controls so much of U.S. media distribution? I don't know. I think, yeah, I don't really think so, Average Joe. My contention has always been that the best way that we can do this is just each of us individually being a part of the solution. And so we all talk to people, and we talk to the people that we know, and we talk to the people online, and then hopefully we can start spreading accurate information that way. Free Speech says every country Trump is threatening is on the proposed Northwest Passage route. Free Speech, if you don't start asking questions, I am going to boot you. Red B says, a man who looks like you just threatened me in traffic. Well, I've been here all day, so it definitely wasn't me. Angel Sepulveda says, last name ends in Stein. Your opinion on politics is invalid. Well, that thing that you just said is anti-Semitic, so you are out of here. Bert says, do you think the Democrats would do better if Kamala hadn't dropped Buttigieg and replaced him? I don't know what you mean by dropped Buttigieg. Like, it was Kamala's choice who the vice president was going to be. I haven't heard any reporting that she originally chose Buttigieg and then dropped him for Walz. If anyone wants to correct me on that, feel free. But I don't know. I don't know if I could accurately describe what happened in those 107 days as Kamala dropping Buttigieg. But if you're asking, do I think that Kamala would have done better with Buttigieg instead of Walz? I don't think so. Who the vice president is barely moves the needle, I think. Okay, Warning says Kamala losing was a huge win for Venezuela. Disagree. Heat Miser says she mentions this in her book. She mentions that she picked Buttigieg and then changed her mind in the book. Sophia says because it's harder for the government to implement services in ways that people agree with if there is more diversity. Again, Sophia, I completely disagree. There are so many things that America does already in that vein where people are agreeing or disagreeing about how things should be done or different communities needing different resources, and we're making it work. It's definitely flawed in certain ways, and it's always getting better or worse depending on who is in charge. But I definitely don't see that as being any sort of impenetrable obstacle to getting universal health care. Apple user 74 says thoughts on Islam. The same as every religion. You're allowed to do whatever religion you like. Heat Miser says correct. Oh, that's interesting. Did Buttigieg actually get a call saying you're the guy? Interesting. Let me know about that. Heat Miser, I did not read that book. Okay, Jeezy says, when will Bondi be impeached for violating the Transparency Act? That is a really good question that I would love for you to ask some Republicans in Congress, because they are in control, so it is up to them when that happens. Real Bendis says, Jerry, you should know that using Rothschilds is code word for anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. Yes, I know. Woo. Okay, let's see here. Misty Lane says, you should go to the workers and ask what their grievances and use their problems in your propaganda. That way they can see that you stand with them. That is why Kamala fails. I mean, I definitely think that we should be talking to workers and incorporating those messages into our campaigns, but I don't think that is why Kamala failed. Democrats have removed themselves from the workers, which is why they are failing to do. You think that? Eleni says, "Are you actually Jewish?" Technically, no, because my mom wasn't Jewish, but my dad was Jewish. So, for all intents and purposes, I am Jewish. I don't celebrate, so I don't really have a religion that I practice. What's up, Rayon 0007? Good to see you again. Okay, Shiny Bear says thoughts on American politicians' heavy involvement with Israel in many different factors. So I think there's a couple of things going on there. I think that we we were trying to do right by a group of people who were slaughtered during the Holocaust in giving them a place where they can feel safe and giving them a home and giving a home to the diaspora, the Jewish diaspora. And so I think that a lot of the support that we gave them originally came from there. Then it became very valuable real estate in all of our, you know, chicanery in the Middle East. And so it was incumbent upon us to have a foothold in that area, an ally where we could put our bases and land our planes and shit like that. At a certain point, I think Israel started pushing American politicians around and using donor money to lose elections for politicians that stood up to them. And they were extremely successful in that campaign. And so, in an effort to remain elected, a lot of politicians just towed the line with regards to what's going on with Israel. Yeah, I am very pleased that the Democratic Party is standing up to Israel. Not the entire Democratic Party, but more than have in a very long time. And I don't see any of that happening on the Republican side. You know. Alrighty. Elaine says that's cool. It's really interesting to know about where people come from. I mean, technically, I have some DNA, but it's way removed. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I think depending on how far back you go, a lot of people can find some Judaism in there. Warning says Democrats hate the chosen people. That is not true. I don't have a lot of faith that you're hearing in good faith, so I'm just going to go ahead and block you right away. Bert says, do you support sanctuary cities? Do you think there's a need to abolish them? I think sanctuary cities are probably a net positive. What we want to be able to do is have every group of people that are living in a place feel like they can talk to the police when a crime has been done to them. Because if you're not in a sanctuary city and you are here illegally, and then somebody does a crime to you, then you are not going to want to talk to the police because maybe that cop is going to deport you. And so that, burglar or murderer or rapist or whatever is now free to just continue doing all of their crimes because all of these very specific people do not feel safe going to the police. Moore says, who would make a good new minority Senate leader? Any Republican. William Hager says, what do you think about the USA do with Omar? Do you mean Ilhan Omar? I guess continue allowing her to be a representative and citizen of the country. Juan Sanabria says, liberals and Democrats protest no kings and no new wars, but want the USA to release a real dictator. That is not true. Democrats are not calling for the release of Maduro. We are just saying that the way that Trump got Maduro to this country is irresponsible, dangerous, illegal, both internationally and nationally. And also, it was a waste of taxpayer dollars just so that oil billionaires can be even richer. I am tired of paying for rich people to get richer. I am tired of my money going to pay for that. And everybody should be, in my opinion. Unless you're a billionaire who's making out like a fucking bandit with Trump in office and Republicans in control of Congress and Republicans in control of the judiciary. I'm sure you're fucking pleased as punch about that, but I'm fucking pissed. I want my money to go to bringing poor people out of poverty. I want my money to go to be giving people health care and good educations and housing. I do not want my money to be going towards a billionaire being able to afford a 5th private jet or a 10th giant yacht or another fucking crate of caviar that they can fucking snort on the weekends. Alrighty, rant over. I'm going to cool down a little bit. That solar guy says, why don't they show the original map of British mandate when discussing Palestine? I don't know. I don't really know how productive the historical part of the conversation is. It's like these people are living here now. Let's deal with that. Jonas Dunning says, better it go to Somalians' third daycare. You know, Jonas, that was kind of a shitty comment, Jonas. That was a shitty thing to say. Because Somalians did not perpetrate this fraud. A white lady did. She's in jail now, thankfully. But Somalians did not do that. It was a white lady. So can you please miss me with that shit, Jonas? And if I catch you doing that again, I'm gonna boot you. Okay. Thug Butts. Which guy that played Superman? The most recent one? Okay. Sophia says, what do you think about how taxes would increase dramatically if democratic socialism was implemented? So the entire foundation of that philosophy, Sophia, is that we gain more despite the fact that our taxes are going up. So for example, if our taxes go up because we are getting universal health care, we are ultimately saving money by not having to pay for health insurance, things like that. Let me know what you think about that. And thank you to everybody who helped me reach my first gift goal of the day. Shiny says, how likely do you think we'll enter a war? With the Trump administration behaving the way that they are, I think war is probably likely. And it really bums me out to say that. Muzz King, Lindsay, Jen, thank you so much for helping me reach my first gift goal of the day. Mama Bunny says, how do we get out of this mess? Are we supposed to live with this another 3 years? So the answer is no, we do not have to live with this for another 3 years. Mama Bunny, what can be done about it? Here's what can be done about it. We have to do the work, Mama Bunny. The Republican Party has been aligned with the billionaire class for a long time, and they have been working on rigging our government to keep them in power and keep them getting all of the fucking money. They own all of the information channels, social media, mainstream news, right-wing news, etc. And so the only advantage that we have over them is numbers of people. There are way more of us than there are of them. And so we need to do the work. And what is the work? The work is protesting, boycotting, striking. The work is putting pressure on elected representatives and companies, corporations. The work is talking to people in real life. Your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, your family, people that already know you and trust you are going to be much more open to these kinds of discussions than if you just knock on a door and talk to some stranger. Door knocking is great, but you know, I think you probably get a little bit more mileage per gallon if you talk to people that already know you. There are already great organizations that are out there doing this. Mama Bear, I think that's what your name was. And so if you don't feel like reinventing the wheel, if you don't feel like, you know, starting your own political action group, all you got to do is go find them, you know, go check out Indivisible or Vote Save America or Run for Something or Swing Left. Swing Left has started a new initiative called Ground Truth that is, in my opinion, has fixed political canvassing. And so go do that. You know, donate your time and donate your money to these great organizations. And if you don't want to have to write down all those things that I just said, I outline all of that stuff on my Discord. Link is in the bio. And on my Discord channel, there would be a thread called The Work that has all of that stuff outlined. Thank you, D. Scott, and thank you, Muzz King, for helping me reach my second gift goal of the day. I have been ignoring Twitch and YouTube, so let me check out what's going on over there real quick as I... Daniel says, Jarrett, how impressive was the extraction, though, operationally speaking? Yeah, no one's saying that the American military isn't fucking, you know, on X Games mode, you know, but the fact that they did a bad thing really well, I don't think is any just desserts. Okay, Average Joe says, I have the opinion that the federal government needs to treat healthcare the same way local government uses eminent domain, where local government says, we're taking some of your property, but we're going to pay you for it. The federal government needs to say, we're taking your taxes, but we're going to give you healthcare. Fucking deal with it is a pretty funny way. I don't know how much mileage the government gets by telling people to fucking deal with it. Average Joe says, just mentioned a comment about chosen people. Can you explain what that commenter was referring to? I am honestly ignorant regarding the reference. So some people refer to the Jewish people as the chosen people. I believe Jews refer to themselves as the chosen people. Eleni says, do you disagree that even if Maduro was a bad guy, this had nothing to do with human rights? We support human rights abuses abroad and at home. No, I don't disagree with that at all. Everything that Trump is saying is the reason why they wanted to kidnap Maduro and bring him to America. He has pardoned another person who did the exact same thing. Like, if it's about drug trafficking, well, then why did you pardon the former president of Honduras? If it's about human rights violations, then why are you paying the president dictator of El Salvador to take a bunch of our immigrants and people that are here legally and legally? Katanau says, "Are you a left, center, or right leaning?" I'm a progressive Democrat, so I am. Some people would describe that as far left. I call it a progressive Democrat. Okay. Isaac Laufer says, I know Trump's opinion, but what do Americans think about the annexation of Greenland? I'm going to say that it is wildly unpopular. I'm going to say it has 80% disapproval. Isaac Laufer. But yeah, I don't know what the recent polling is. That's just me going for my gut. Louise Williams says, what about the $14 million to Argentina? Yeah, another example of our tax dollars being wasted so that Trump can prop up other right-wing authoritarians. Bonkiewicz says, not left at all. Left starts at anti-capitalism. Okay, Bonky. I think that we don't do ourselves any favors by being gatekeeping about being a part of the left. The purity testing of the left is not a good look. It's not productive. I am personally against it. We should never be saying you are not blank enough to be considered left-wing or a Democrat. We need to be the party of being a big tent. And if I'm not left-wing enough for you, then that's fine. That's your opinion. But I am a progressive Democrat. I am a left-wing human being living in America who is, trying to get more progressive politicians elected so that we can have a better country. Okay, Bert says, I read online that Waltz knew about the fraud early but dismissed it. Thoughts? I don't know how accurate that is, Bert. There is a ton of misinformation out there about the whole COVID funding fraud thing that was happening in Minnesota. If I think there's a possibility that Tim Walz thinks that he didn't do enough and he feels bad about it, and that's maybe part of the reason why he dropped out of the race. It's possible that there was some evidence that he was given some information and did not do enough to stop it at the time. But the only places that I have seen reporting on that are right-wing sources, and right-wing sources, as we have discussed, are notoriously inaccurate. There have been many studies on this, and that right-wing news is the least accurate news that you can find. And so, yeah, I need this information to be corroborated by legitimate news sources before I can, actually say whether or not it's true or not. Okay, thank you, Bertz. Carlos says, Tampon Tim is a crook like most Democrats, Hillary, Biden, and Nancy. All right, Tampon Tim, congratulations on... Carlos, congratulations on getting blocked. All right, scrolling down. The Fixer Mike, great to see you again. I think leadership is learning. The corruption is too deep to battle at this point. Are you talking about Democratic leadership? Because I don't know if I would agree with that. Forehead Snatcher says, just say you're a liberal. Don't say left-wing because it's confusing. Well, no, I call myself a progressive Democrat, which is part of the left, which is part of the American left. I don't really truck with semantic arguments. So if you want to call it something else, you go right ahead. Katie Bakes says, do you think all Republicans are bad people, and do you believe most conservative Christians are hypocritical and hateful? Great to see you again, Katie Bakes, and no, I do not. I think that the base of people that vote for Trump and Republicans is as diverse and weird as America itself. And so there are a lot of people out there who I think are very well-intentioned people who have just been given a lot of really terrible information, or they're just not focused on politics because they're busy trying to live their lives. And so they just kind of do what other people in their communities are doing and what their church tells them to do and what their Facebook feed tells them to do, etc., etc. Thank you, Joe and Muzzking, for helping me reach my third gift goal of the day. And so you know what time it is, guys? That means that it's Finger Hearts O'Clock. We are now in level 2 of the live stream. Very exciting. All right, Ghostface, so glad to see that you are here again. Cat Tanao says, do you have Republican friends? Yeah, I believe that I do. I don't know if they consider me a friend, but I consider them friends. Average Joe says, do you think that any demographic group unironically referring to themselves as a chosen people helps or hurts the public's perceptions of them? To me, it feels counterproductive and sounds like something you would hear from the KKK crowd. Yeah, there is self-aggrandizing talk within every single community. I believe that if you talk to anybody who is really deep into their into their religion, they will tell you something similar about we are the best, we are the true ones, we are the ones that actually have the accurate relationship with God and the ethereal beings that control everything. So yeah, I'm wary of saying that that is a bad move by Jewish people when I'm pretty sure that everybody does similar things. But I take your point. Where everything that Jewish people do is concerned, like we have to worry about how things look because there is so much propaganda and conspiracy theories around us. And thank you, D. Scott, Joe Padilla, and East Meets Westy Bestie for helping me reach my first Finger Hearts goal of the day. The Fixer Mike says, will we be able to convince the millions of hate voters to change their mind? That's the core here. I think it's probably going to be easier to convince squishy Republican voters, centrist voters, independent voters, and misinformed voters before we take people who have an ideology that is based in hate and convince them to not do that anymore. Based Peck says, Nick Fuentes taught me never trust you people. Well, that's an anti-Semitic comment. So you are out of here. Bertz says, out of context, but which era of music do you like most? When I was a kid, I had this weird pretentious streak that came out of nowhere where I only thought that old school Motown and jazz was good music, and I eschewed anything that was new. I think that as I have, when I was in college, I sort of discovered a bunch of other things of much more contemporary music that I liked and decided to, exercise that pretension from my body. And so now I just like whatever is gets my foot tapping. And so I'm going to say this era. I think things like music and comedy are great when they are of the moment. And so, yeah, give me some new music that is talking to our current zeitgeist. Katanao says, could you please share what led you to join the Democratic Party? Sure. It's two things. It's as I started learning about politics, I started noticing that there were all these problems that I was seeing that were not getting solved. And I was like, why is this happening? Why is this problem not getting solved? And everywhere that I turned, I saw the Republican Party. I saw the Republican Party doing things to purposefully not solve that problem. And so it started getting me thinking, like, I think the Republican Party might be bullshit. Like, I think it might be shitty. And then I started looking into what the Democratic Party did. And I started seeing things that I was like, okay, even if I disagree with that, I think a reasonable argument could be made that that's the move. Or, you have other examples of them doing things that I think are great, like making it so that health insurance companies can't discriminate against people for having pre-existing conditions, or being the first president to walk a picket line, or advocating for, a more equitable financial system where we don't have people starving on the streets while billionaires are, snorting caviar on their private jets. And all of that was coming out of the Democratic Party. So it just seemed like the only serious party that was trying to actually make things better. And the more I learned, the more that was confirmed for me. Okay, Joe, East Meets West, Fern, and Daniel D, thank you for helping me reach my second Finger Hearts of the day. Okay, James Rush says, has anyone gotten more money in their paycheck? I mean, I'm an independent, what do you call it? I'm a freelancer, so I can't say that I have. But yeah, I doubt whether or not that is going on. Okay, Zeke Laufer. I don't know what those words mean. Ramstein, America, fit well now. I don't know what that means. Right. Joe Padilla says, "Does anybody care about the e-files anymore?" Lots of people do. It's constantly trending on social media. Dark leftist Zoran Mamdani says, "Favorite Marx book? I have not read a lot of Karl Marx. I read the Communist Manifesto when I was in college." Okay, Damien says, "Will I go to jail for robbing apartments?" Yes. Kurt Cobain's son Jack says, "Pro-life or pro-choice?" Pro-choice. But even if you're pro-life, you should still vote for Democrats because Democratic policies actually decrease the number of abortions that happen. Republican policies don't stop abortions and they don't even decrease them. They just make pregnancy more dangerous for women. Christopher Ebier says, "What do you think about the Greenland situation?" The Greenland situation is Donald Trump to steal Greenland from Denmark. It is not a situation of Greenland or Denmark doing something and us responding to it. It is Trump aggression on the world stage. It's bad. It's bad for 1,000 reasons. We should not be going back to a might makes right world order where you're allowed to do fucking colonialism and build your empires. It's just bad. It's just bad, bad, bad. PG Howie says, in summary, Republicans bad, Democrats good. Politicians, yes. The voting base, no. I believe that there are exactly as many good people in the Republican voting base as there are in the Democratic voting base. I believe that there are just as many smart people in the Republican voting base as there are in the Democratic voting base. But where policy is concerned, where platform and governing history is concerned, Democratic politicians and the Democratic Party is good, and the Republican politicians and the Republican Party is bad. And I have 1,000 points of evidence for that point. Okay, the Fixer Mike says there's only 30K people in Greenland, DJT trying to get them to declare an allegiance under threat. That seems pretty accurate to me. The Fixer Mike. Dark leftist Zora Mamdani says, "I hate Kamala Harris." I don't. She's not my favorite, but I think she's fine. Ghostface says, "I heard you say we're likely to go to war this year, so who do you think will battle and why?" I don't know when America is going to be in a full-scale war. And I don't know which country or countries we will be in a full-scale war against. What I believe, what I am predicting, and remember, guys, political predictions are worthless. This is just my opinion. I believe that the way that Trump and his administration and Stephen Miller and Pete Hegseth and all those fucking ding-dongs are acting is going to increase global instability. It is going to increase tensions with, between nation states, and that will then lead to a war of some kind that America will be a part of. Okay, We Ride says, "You're not smart enough to know anything about politics." Maybe, but I'm smart enough to fuck your mom. Sophia says, "Do you believe that black people in America are still actively being oppressed?" Yeah, and there's a ton of data that corroborates that, Sophia. If you would like to get into that, I'll be happy to send you some information on that. Okay, it's a song, says Ozikie. Well, I don't know that song. Katanaus says, "I tend to vote for different parties as I find that no single party consistently aligns with all of my beliefs. Therefore, I sometimes vote for Democrats and other times for Republicans." What are the issues that you feel the Republican Party aligns with you more on than the Democratic Party? Katanau, let me know how you feel about that. Let me know what your answer is there. I'm too handsome for this, says us plebeians can't blackmail politicians with kids, but we can roast. That's not a question. Bert says, "What do you think of the Patriot Games and the policy keeping women out of men's sports?" Everything that Donald Trump does is a mechanism for corruption. So he is going to do this thing to distract us. He's going to do this thing so that he can make money off of it, so that he can get fat government contracts to his billionaire buddies. It's a stupid thing that he's doing. It's a stupid thing. He's a stupid, corrupt person, so the things he does are stupid and corrupt. Now, as far as like keeping women out of men's sports, I think you probably mean the opposite. Like you probably mean a male to female trans being kept out of female sports. It is such a tiny issue that I believe we do not need federal legislation around it. Because there are plenty of men out there who could transition into a woman and then would get their asses kicked in whatever sports league they play in. So why not let them play in the women's league? So yeah, I don't, there's this rhetoric on the right that Democrats love men and women sports and they love transgender for everybody. That's obviously bullshit. And I really hope that there's nobody out there that actually espouses that or believes that. We just believe that this is an issue that has been overhyped by the right in order to win elections. They have been lying about the Democratic policy on this for a long time to win elections, and they are hurting trans people to win elections. It's bullshit. This situation affects something like 20 people total, so it can be handled locally. Sophia says, yes, I'd appreciate it if you could send me data on that. By the way, I do believe racism is real, but not systemic. All right, yeah, I will look for stuff on that, Sophia. I'll try to remember, but send me a DM just in case. Ghostface says, who do you think is the most powerful country in the world currently? First weapons, then economy. I think it used to be an open question, but I think that Donald Trump has hobbled America to the extent that now it's China. I've seen some reporting to suggest that the American military has been doing war games against a hypothetical China and that we lose every time. We are allowing China to dominate the world's economy because we've taken ourselves out of it by starting a trade war, America versus everybody. We are allowing China to lap us on renewable technology, which is going to be a massive advantage once it reaches, it's not a critical point or like a level of stability, but when China is 100% renewable and we're not, we're fucked. It is such an unbelievable advantage, both in the economy and in the military, to not be reliant on fossil fuels for your electricity. And we are ceding that to the Chinese government. Additionally, there is so much waste, fraud, and abuse in our military spending that China is doing more with less. So yeah, and this is largely the fault of Donald Trump and the Republican Party. Let's see here. Louise Williams says, yes, we're so fucked. We're so fucked, but we can get unfucked. Louise, what I want everybody to take away from these live streams is that it is not hopeless. And that's, resistance is not futile. What one person can make, another person can unmake, and vice versa. So we can fix this. If good people do the work, then we can fix this. Thank you for being here, Berts. Katie Bakes says, Sophia just seems like every other typical blonde. Come on, let's not say mean things about people that are acting respectfully in the live stream. Katie Bakes, Okay. Louise says, vote, 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 but I feel hopeless. I think it's fine to devolve into pessimism every now and again. As long as you watch a movie, you play video games, you have fun with your friends, and then you get back into the work. All right, Ghostface, is there absolutely anything you agree with Trump on? Like anything, I don't care if it's important or not. Ghostface, it's interesting. Sometimes bad people do the right thing for the wrong reasons. Sometimes Trump lies about something that he says that he's going to do and then doesn't do it. So it's difficult for me to say I agree with Trump on that because sometimes he says the thing that I agree with him on and sometimes he says the opposite. I agree that getting rid of the penny is probably a good move, but if somebody had given him enough money, he wouldn't have done that. I think that he signed some sort of Justice Department prison reform bill in his first term, but he only did that because Kim Kardashian told him to. And he didn't write the bill. He didn't work on passing it. He just signed the fucking thing. So it's like, yeah, he signed it. He could have not signed it. But he only signed it because Kim Kardashian told him to, and he didn't do any fucking work for it. So it's like, yeah, we're giving him. I'm so tired of certain groups of people getting so much credit and other groups of people not getting any credit. And I think that the difference between how we talk about the Republican Party versus the Democratic Party or Donald Trump versus any other politician is emblematic of that. Where every time Trump does something shitty, we go and we look for the silver lining. We go and look for this maybe is not as bad as it appears to be. Whereas every time the Democrats do something, we're like, let's look for the reason why this sucks. Let's look for the reason why this isn't helping people. And I don't know, I find it annoying. Okay, let's see here. Alex says, should freedom be compromised for security? And if yes, by how much? I don't know, Alex. I don't know. Where everything is concerned, it's moderation and a balancing act. A. Ron says, I agree with the vaccines that he provided in his first term. Yeah, Project Warp Speed. I don't know how much credit he deserves, but it did happen in his first term. And so if we're going to just sort of like lump the good things and give him credit for those, and we're going to lump the bad things and give him credit for those, then yes, Operation Warp Speed was a massive success. Okay, Kuru says, why do you think MAGA won't let go of Trump? He could do anything. Misinformation, propaganda, cult shit, Shork says, is there any point where you'd say China's progress is because it's not a democratic state? I mean, I definitely think that some of their progress can be ascribed to not having to deal with politics the way that we do in America. Ezra Klein said in his book Abundance that Chinese citizens don't have the freedom to pick their leaders or say what they want to say, but they do have high-speed rail. And that's absolutely a fucking bananas thing to say in a book, but it's accurate. But yeah, I don't think that that's, that means that we should be leaning into authoritarian governments. I don't think that we should be throwing people in jail just because we say that one dude stand in that one square that one time in front of that tank. I don't think that we should be allowing them to do ethnic cleansing against the Uyghur population. But yeah, I mean, you got high-speed rail, man. Fucking good job. You're printing more solar panels than any country on earth because and your authoritarianism has enabled that. Good job, I suppose. Okay. Ashhole says, will we see Congress step in at some point because this shit is crazy? I feel like the further away that we get from it, the less likely it is that something is going to happen. And so I think people should be putting pressure on their elected representatives to fucking do something about it, All right, let me get to these TikTok and let me get some of these Twitch and YouTube comments. Having relocated from Sweden, says Katanau, I find myself missing the comprehensive healthcare system and extensive public transportation options. Additionally, I hold a pro-life stance. Josh Saro says, so our options for the future are defunct or defuct. That's very funny, Josh. Let's see here. So yeah, Katanau, it sounds like the only policy that you think the Republican Party matches you on is being pro-life. Is that accurate, Katanau? Let me know. Azike says, I heard that Americans have a problem with a shortage of people in the military. Families that have served in the military for generations have withdrawn. The second problem is obesity among people of draft age. I don't know if that's accurate. I haven't heard anything about that, so I do not know, unfortunately. Average Joe says, how important do you think it will be for the Democratic Party to support more nuanced candidates? For example, you may have a candidate that is against abortion yet believes the government has no right to infringe on a woman's health care. So Joe Biden, for example. Or thinks homosexuality is gross. Says also believes the government shouldn't infringe on the happiness of two consenting adults. I mean, where the Democratic Party is concerned, Average Joe, it is always going to be a difficult slog of a bunch of different opinions because that is the entire power of the Democratic Party, is that it is a big tent. And it's hard to coalesce a big tent party around specific issues or a specific direction or platform. But, we will fight it out in the primaries, and then we will try to win in the general election, and then we will all try to work together. And I hope that people on the left who are watching me will take this and tattoo it on their brain, which is that the right and the billionaire class wants us fighting amongst ourselves. They want us saying you can't be a good Democrat unless you do exactly these things. They want you saying, I am not for that politician because they do not align with me politically 100%. They want the diversity of the Democratic Party to be its weakness. And I say, let us insist, let us demand and force it to be our strength. I am not going to allow this kind of divisive rhetoric to exist in my sphere. And so I am doing everything that I can to eliminate it where I see it. And I hope that you guys will join me in that. Obviously, I do not condone any kind of violence. I know the word eliminate can have, connotations of violence and shit like that. Obviously, that is not what I am condoning. I condemn all violence. Oh, let's see here. Louise Williams says voting will be rigged in the midterms. I do not care for that kind of doomerism, Louise. The Trump administration and the Republican Party are going to try to rig the midterms, but it is up to us whether or not they get away with it. Okay, Shork says, what do you think led SCOTUS being so ideologically captured? It was designed to be that. The billionaire class got together and said, let us find exactly the judges that will help us turn SCOTUS into an ideological tool for us. And they were extremely successful in that goal. Mina says, do you condemn violence in self-defense? I mean, I condemn all violence up to the point where you are not safe. So if someone's threatening you with a gun, I don't think that you should shoot them. I think you should knock the gun out of their hand and then, run away. Keyhole says, do you think there'll be another January 6th? Potentially, if we don't stop Trump from doing another January 6th, then there will be. Bradley Brock says, do you support Trump? No, I do not. All right, everybody, Kata now. I would love to talk to you about why, even if you are pro-life, you should still vote for Democrats in America. We are a little over an hour, so I got to be wrapping up pretty soon. But I'll give you the short version, and I would love to hear if you have any thoughts on it. And I would love for you to come back, and we can talk about it more in the future. But the short version is this. Democratic Party is the more pro-life party because our policies actually decrease the number of abortions that happen. Republican policies do not stop abortion. They do not even decrease the number of abortions that happen. They only make pregnancy harder and more dangerous for women. Additionally, the Democratic Party is pro-life in that we are trying to protect people from gun violence. Additionally, the Democratic Party is pro-life because we are against the death penalty. And we are against unnecessary wars. There are like 80 people in Venezuela who are dead now because the Trump administration wanted to steal oil for his billionaire buddies. And the Democratic Party is against that. Shauna says, Democrats are too moderate in my opinion. Some people believe that, Shauna, but some people believe that the Democratic Party is too far to the left. And I think it's really interesting that America holds that diversity of opinion. The cynical part of me believes that this dichotomy, not dichotomy, but this discord in what people believe about the Democratic Party is fueled by propaganda and misinformation. Like, they find people who want the Democratic Party to be further to the left, and then they show them propaganda about how moderate and Republican-ish they are, and they find people that want Democrats to be more moderate, and they show them material about Democrats being extreme leftist, socialist, communists. So yeah, I think that you are completely free to feel that way, so long as you are still going out there and voting and supporting better politicians over worse politicians, and better political parties over worse political parties. All right, everybody, I'm going to start wrapping things up. Get your final questions in here. If you want to support the show financially, you can, but you don't have to. I have a Patreon that you can join for as little as $1 a month. I have a store you can buy things from. Links are in my website. Links are on my profile pages. And also, you can send gifts and become super fans and subscribers on TikTok, Twitch, and YouTube. If you are an Amazon Prime subscriber, if you subscribe to my Twitch using your Amazon Prime account, it costs you $0, but I get $2. So that is a great free way to help support the live stream. Special thank you to all of my people who are already part of supporting the show financially. The notes that I have on who are those people was deleted for some reason, and so I can't thank you individually the way that I usually do. Alrighty, let's see what else. Regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. If you have any questions that I was not able to get to on this live stream, or if something else comes up that you want to ask me about, DMs are open. Email me through my website or hit me up on my Discord. I do not care if you get in touch with me over multiple channels. If I'm not responding to your TikTok DM, shoot me an email through my website. If I didn't see that, shoot me something on my Discord. Discord's a great resource also because it is a great way to build community, and also there's great recommendations there for books, podcasts, and nonprofit organizations that you should 100% be donating your time and money to. I have a stand-up special coming out at the end of the month, January 31st. Jarrett Berenstein presents I'm Worried, a short stand-up special. So I hope that you will mark your calendars and join us for the premiere on YouTube on January 31st. Mark your calendars, tell your friends. I am very excited about this special coming out. I worked really hard on it, and I hope that you guys like it. And yeah, links to all of that shit is in my bio as well. So if you ever are lost and you want to know where and when do you watch my stand-up special, all you got to do is go to my website and everything will direct you there. And lastly, just my heartfelt plea for everybody to do the work, because doing the work is the only way that we are going to be able to get out of this fucking quagmire. All right, I love you as well, Louise. Real Benda says, when are you doing comedy? I have one comedy show in New York, not this Saturday, but next Saturday. And then I'm not going on the road doing stand-up again for another 11 months. So I'll see you guys at the end of November. Schedule will be up on my website as soon as I get those dates. Rune255 says, do you think World War III is near? I think with Trump and Stephen Miller in charge, that we are closer now than we have been in a long time. But I still think we probably will not get to a big declared world war anytime soon. And yes, Louise, I am a comedian. Okay, Breeley says, I'm a Democrat who is really anti-Trump, but to be honest, Sophia does seem genuine and kind for the most part. Completely agree, Breeley. Kimberlina says, how was the movie? Do you mean Avatar? It was a visual spectacle that was way too long and pretty stupid. Okay. Oren Poe says, is the Democrat he's asking for money? Well, you know, nobody has to give me money if they don't want to. I just want to let them know that the option is available should they choose to utilize it. Alex says, your opinion on Jack Schlossberg running for New York 12. His chances on Polymarket are below 10%. Unfortunately, I do not know who that is. So sorry. Communist Ford ACCP says, if I support Nazi Party, do you like that? No, I do not. No, I do not like that. Robert Shack says, ever notice that no matter who's in power, the billionaires, corporations, and banks do great? Yes, Robert, but sometimes they do less great. For example, when Democrats are in charge, they do less great. And so I say better is better and worse is worse. Breeley says, do you think that conservatives who support bad policies because of religion actually follow it? I think some of them do and some of them don't. I think that some people think that they are being good Christians by doing it. I think that other people know they're being bad Christians and are doing it anyways. I think it's complicated and nuanced, and you know, there's a lot of people in America and everybody is different and weird. East Meets Westy says, will it be filmed and will you do a pay period view to subscribers only? You should to get paid. Do you mean the special East Meets Westy Bestie? The special is gonna go out for free on YouTube. I do have one piece of content that is pay to watch. It's a special that I filmed during the pandemic called Off White Wall, and that is available on my website. But yeah, I'm interested in the idea. I don't know if I have enough people that are willing to pay for me to do like subscriber only chats and stuff like that. If my numbers get bigger, then I'm definitely open to doing shit like that, 100%. Okay, Breeley says, opinion on Taylor Swift. The girl writes bops. I don't know how good of a person she is in real life, but she do write some bops. And Judah says, thoughts on Charlie Kirk. It was wrong that he was assassinated. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Political violence, all violence, I'm against it. I condemn it in the strongest possible language. But the fact that he was gunned down the way that he was does not mean that he was a good person when he was alive. He was a liar and he was a con artist. All right, everybody. On that note, I'm gonna get out of here before they can before they can boot me for that. Average Joe, just want to let you know that I was laughing at what you said there. All right, everybody, do the work, be good to each other, be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.